Hello, Emerald City Commons. This is going to be a video on the numbers places. So what I mean by this is we have numbers like, for example, 321. Alright, I'm actually going to rewrite that because last time I made a video, you guys said my 2's look like 6's, so I'm going to write it better for you guys. Alright, so the number 321. So when we're thinking about numbers, we have to realize that there's a specific category for each one of these numbers. So this 1 is in the ones place. This 2 is in the tens place. And the 3, this 3 is in the hundreds place, but I'm just going to write it hund instead of hundreds. And what this means is that if we took the number 321 and then we added 1 to it, the 1 would be added into the ones category right here, because with each number there's actually, well, actually I'll do decimals later, but yeah, so this is in the ones place, so we have a 1 in the ones place being added to a 1 in the ones place here. So our resulting number would be 322. Okay, I wrote those 2's wrong. You guys are going to just have to bear with me when I mess it up. Alright, so that's adding a 1 in the ones place to a 1 in the ones place here. Now, with 322, that's the number we just had. If we add 10 to it, what we would expect to get is based on what we're adding to each column. So we have a 0 in the 1 place. Actually, for the sake of clarity, to make it easier, we should all practice writing it in an up-to-down fashion. So we have 322, and then we add 10. Alright, so this right here is the same as when we do 322 plus 10. Alright, these are the same thing, it's just that I'm writing it differently. Alright. So, alright, excuse me one moment. Alright. So, what we would be doing here is, when we're adding the 10, there's a 0 right here. This 0 is in the ones place. So, we'd be putting 2 plus 0, and that equals 2. And this 1, this is in the tens place. So this would be a 3. And then we bring this down, and this is in the hundreds place. And here, even though we have nothing written, when there's nothing written, there's also a 0 here. So we can put an imaginary 0 here in the 100s place, and that brought down would equal 332. So we increased our value from 322 to 332 by adding 10. So I want you guys to practice, but do it in your heads, because now that you guys can try to understand what this is when we use it on paper, right? Because you guys can do these addition problems just fine, but 2 weeks ago when we tried to count with the blocks, we had difficulty adding 3 to 99 or 3 to 100, and so we're going to focus on this. So we're going to try it in our heads. So if we have, we're just going to have the number, I'll write down the first number and then I'll say, so we're going to have the number 110. Alright, so what number would we get if we subtracted 3 from 110? Alright, and I'll pause the video after when I say pause. So we're going to try to do 110 minus 3, 110 minus 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. So you're going to try to find out 110 minus all of those numbers on a piece of paper, and you can just write down your answers and try to do it in your head. And then I'll show you guys the answers on paper afterwards. So we're going to do 110 minus 3, 110 minus 4, 110 minus 5, 110 minus 6, 110 minus 7, 110 minus 8, 110 minus 9, 110 minus 10, and then 110 minus 11. And, you know, just try to write down all your answers in that order, and we'll see if you guys got it right. So pause the video now. Alright, so 110 minus 3, this equation requires us to subtract 3, but in the ones place, right here, it would be a 3 being subtracted from a 0, and we can't do that. So we're going to be doing a 3 minus the 10. So we're going to be focusing on this much of the problem right here, being the 10 component and the 3 component. And if we subtract 3 from 10, we know that the answer is 7. So where this 7 goes has to be in line with the place. So putting the 7 here, because we're subtracting the 3 from the 10, would be incorrect, because that would suggest that this 1 would be increased, even though it's a subtraction problem. So we'd never expect a higher number to be here when we're subtracting, only focusing on this box, because that would suggest that the number increased. So what we would have to put, where we would have to put the 7 is in the ones place, because now we're treating the 10, this 10 right here, as we're treating this as the primary thing that's being subtracted from, and we have the 3, so the 7 would be in the ones place. If I put the 7 here, this is a 7D, and 7D is a lot higher, and it's a lot greater of a number than a 7. So 10 minus 3 is 7, not 70, and that's why it would go into the ones column. So the bringing it back to the 110 minus 3, we have the 7 here, and then this becomes a 0, and now we have 0 minus a blank space, which is also a 0, and we know that that equals 0. And then we have a 1 minus a blank space, which is also a 0, so then we'd get 107, and that would be your answer. So that's a long-term explanation of that. And then for each of the following numbers, you'll see that 107, or that the number 110, the more we subtract from 110, the smaller our number is going to be. Because when we take more away from a number, the resulting number is always going to be smaller. So 110 minus 4 would be 106. And then 110 minus 5 would be 105. 110 minus 6 would be 104. 110 minus 7 would be 103. 110 minus 8 would be 102. 110 minus 9 would be 101. And then 110 minus 10 would be 100. Now this is where things get a little bit more difficult, is when we take 110 and subtract 11. So this really teaches us to focus on knowing the different places, knowing the hundreds, the tens, and the ones place. So on this problem here, I'll do a larger one of this. So 110 minus 11, and we'll separate our categories. Alright, let's make the ones a little bit easier to see. Yeah. Oh wait. Yeah. Alright, so we have our 110 right here, and then minus 11. So the 0 minus 1, as before in each of the other problems, would not work. So we'd have to break this, make the tens place 0, and bring the 1 over to the ones place. So now everything that's done in this column is just a 10 minus 1, and if we do that straight down, that would be a 9, and the 9 would go in the ones place. Now we have 0 minus 1 again, but because we have a 1 over here, we can break this from the hundreds place, make this a 0, and then make this a 10 in the tens place. And now 10 minus 1 also equals 9. And then from here, we have a 0, that's the number that's left in the hundreds place, and then a 0 because this is empty, and that becomes a 0 here. So our resulting number would be 99. So hopefully you guys were able to get those, but I just wanted to go through this process once more regarding the places and how to do that. So we're going to try it with an addition problem. Alright, so one sec. For this question, we're going to do, actually, let's work with blocks. So I brought some blocks home, and we get to use those here today. So, when you see these, there are ones pieces, like this, and then there are tens pieces like this, that are all connected together. So, when we have each one of these blocks would be going into the tens place. So if I have this block right here and this block right here, if I'm adding this to this, this would be, if you look at the screen, this would be adding a 10 to a 10, because each of these are worth 10, and the 1 value is in the tens place because of that, and our resulting number would have a 2 in the tens place and a 0 in the ones place. However, if I were to add one of these little blocks to a tens block, this big block would be the first one. So this would be a 10, and this is the long and skinny block as shown here. Alright, this is the long and skinny block right there. And then we have the 1. And the 1 would be in a different place. It would be in the ones place, right? So because of that, we would see that our resulting number would be an 11, because this 1 would go in the ones place and not right here, right? It wouldn't go right there, it'd be right here. So that is a small overview of the places. Now we can try to work with some hundreds places. So if we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, if these are our 10 tens, what would be our resulting number? So take some time to think about that. Feel free to pause it. And try not to count each individual little block, because that would take forever and my camera's not good enough. But realize that each of these would go in the tens place. Maybe write it down on a piece of paper. And, you know, you could add 10 plus 10 plus 10 over and over. And that would also give you the answer. But yeah, just try to figure that one out. How many blocks do we see here when we have 10 tens? Alright, so hopefully you guys added this up and realized that, you know, when you add 10 to 0, you get 10. And then 10 plus 10 equals 20. Here, actually, I'm going to rewrite this. So 10 plus 10, that together equals 20, right? So 10 plus 10 equals 20. And then we take this 10, and this 10 would be shown by adding another 10 right here, plus 10 equals, and that would equal 30. If we add 10 more, that would equal 40. So if you guys might be able to see a pattern, but the tens place, every single time we add 10, increases by 1. So if you guys can count 1 through 10, it would be like counting 1, 2, 3, 4. And you see 1, 2, 3, 4. The only difference is that we're doing it in the tens place and not the ones place. So if we keep going, we'd get 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and then running out of space, but that would be 100 at the end. Alright, and the way that we check this is we count the amount of tens that we added. So we have 1 10 here, another 10 here, so that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So we have 10 times where we added 10. And every time we added it, we increased our tens place by 1. However, when the tens place became a value of 90, that is a terrible 9. When our tens place, that's not that much better, but when our tens place became a value of 9, when we add 1 more to this, there is not a unit that's higher than 9, so we make 10. And so this 9 here becomes a 0, and we add a 1 in the next category to the left. And because that was in the 10th place, we add a 1 to the 100th place, which was originally a 0 here, but because we added 9 plus 1 in the 10th place, that number, the 10 went over here, and now we have a 1. And if we do 0 plus 0, that's 0, and that's how we get a value of 100. So I'm going to be touching up on what this also means regarding multiplication in a multiplication table video, but just a teaser. So when we do 10 plus 10 plus 10, 10 plus 10, and because I'm lazy, I'm just going to bring this over here. Alright, so when we have 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10 10 times, This is the same as 10 times 10. And this is a multiplication problem. So this side right here in this box and this part right here in this circle, these things actually mean the same exact thing. Alright? And both of them will equal 100. So that'll conclude it for this video. I'll put a link of the multiplication table video in the description of this one so that you guys can go to that after you guys have seen this one. And hope you guys enjoyed the video.